It's my honor to introduce one of my very good friends, actually, Hemant Mehta, who is the chair of the board of the Secular Student Alliance, and also runs FriendlyAtheist.com, and is now also on the board of directors of the Foundation Beyond Belief. Hemant has been an absolutely amazing person to actually get to know over the last 6 years, between actually putting in the day-to-day grunt work of showing up to board meetings and making sure that the schedule is going to be right for them and that agenda items got talked about, and going to Secular Coalition for America meetings all over the country, to going and doing amazing things like coming into my hotel room. Well, actually, I think we were sharing the hotel room and saying, hey, I've got this crazy idea. I'm going to sell my soul on eBay. And me being like, oh, haha, funny. And then it exploded into this giant book, and doing all sorts of incredible, amazing things that happened after that, which he has cataloged on his incredibly successful and popular blog, of which I am jealous of all the time when I look at the SSA server traffic versus his server traffic. I'm like, wow. Anyway, I will go ahead and let Hemant take this away for us.
All right. Thanks. Just as an opener, while stragglers come in.
I went bowling the other night, and I saw a man pray to his bowling ball. An adult human being, pray to God for bowling help. Please, God, please give me this moment of strength. Please, Lord, in your name, give me this moment of glory. No, man. God is not going to help you bowl, okay? I think God has more important things to do than help you bowl. But then I started thinking about how screwed up the world is right now. Maybe God does have time. Because haven't you ever had a long list of things to do for the day, and you only pick the easy things to do first? Maybe that's what God is doing. All right, so, genocide, poverty, war. I'm gonna get that 7-10 split. There you go. You're welcome, Buffalo. Oh, hey, Africa. Sorry again for the delay. Maybe after the Super Bowl. I'm kidding. Of course, I'm kidding. God doesn't exist. Surprise! We're adult humans here. That joke was kind of a metaphor for life, wasn't it? It ends with, God doesn't exist. Surprise!
All right. I'll get his name for you in a bit. It's very long and Indian. So when Liz said like a month or two ago, like, hey, Hemant, what do you want to talk about at the SSA conference? I told her, well, there was this lady from the religious right group, in Illinois, who basically told my bosses that I was an atheist, and she won't admit this, but basically tried to get me fired, and it kind of made me mad for the past year. So I can talk about that. And then a bunch of things happened over the past month or two where I had to revamp this entire talk, so I'm not going to do that one anymore. So everything that's in your brochure, it was too late to give it to Liz. So there you go. We're not doing that talk anymore because I learned something from it. But I'll give you the background on what actually happened here. But let me ask you a quick question first. How many of you know who that is? Okay, James Dobson, focus on the Family Guy. How many of you think he's a jerk? Lots of hands. How many of you know who that guy is? Ted Haggard. If you had to write like an essay or a blog post on that guy, how many of you would say something nice? Hey, we got a hand. A couple hands. All right.
You have to mean it.
You do have to mean it. How about this guy? Jerry Falwell, the late Jerry Falwell now. But okay, so again, how many of you think he's a jerk? Lots of hands. So there's this book called The Unlikely Disciple. This guy, Kevin Roos, he's like, I'm going to spend a semester, I could spend a semester abroad. Why don't I just apply to go to Jerry Falwell School? Because that's pretty distant from wherever I'm at now. And one of the things he says in the book, he's from Brown University, one of the things he says in the book is, he actually got to interview Falwell. He was one of the last interviews Falwell gave before he passed away. And he's like, I this guy's morals are reprehensible, just like the other two guys before him, but he's a really nice guy in person. And it's really hard to admit that, but he really wasn't a jerk in person. So, I mean, we always see these people at their worst. And it's really hard to dissociate, like, wow, every time I see him on TV, I really want to kick his ass. But if you met him in person, he's probably not the worst guy in the world. So, as that being a little appetizer or something, here's what happened to me last year with school. The little bit of background you need to know is there was a story where like two gay guys kissed in Utah, and they got arrested for it. And it was ridiculous because like they kiss, heterosexual couples do it all the time, and everything's fine. So what happened is there was like a grassroots movement on Facebook and elsewhere where they said, you know what, that's ridiculous. Let's all meet somewhere. So if you're in Chicago, go to Millennium Park. If you're in Boston, go to Boston Commons at like 2 o'clock on this Saturday, and bring your husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend or partner, and at 2 o'clock, kiss them and walk away. It'll be called a Great American Kiss-In, and it'll show our solidarity for that gay couple and the other gay couples who are harassed for doing what straight couples do all the time. So yeah, that's great. Okay. So this is what a religious organization, religious right organization called the Illinois Family Institute did. This is the press release I got because I'm on their email list because I like keeping tabs on them. This is what they put out. Basically, the headline was, "Keep your kids away from Millennium Park. There's horrible things going on." And look at the bold-faced stuff in particular. An adult kissing a prepubescent child or a high school-age adolescent is obscene and inappropriate. What about people who are closely related by blood? Or kissing among multi-partner unions? Or kissing between two people of the same biological sex is also obscene and inappropriate. Basically saying gay couples kissing is like pedophilia and polyamory and whatever you think about them. But like, that's ridiculous. Like, and I feel like bestiality was also in there. Like, you wouldn't want to see a man kissing a dog either. Like, it was ridiculous. So I read that, and I'm like, okay, well, how do I respond to that crazy? So I'm like, well, I have a website. All right. So I wrote about it. Illinois Family Institute says, keep your kids away from the kissing gays. And I put that on my website. And, okay, so with every post I write, like 3 seconds after I post it, I'm like, I wish I had written that differently. But whatever. I put this up there. I stand by what I wrote there and everything. But after I posted this, it turns out that the head of one of the people who works for the Illinois Family Institute, the woman who wrote that press release, she sent an email to my principal, my math department chair, every administrator at the school, and the entire school board. Her name is Lori Higgins. Here's what she sent to all of them about a year ago today. I'm shortening this from what it is, but you get the gist. It's unfortunate that Neuqua Valley High School students have math teacher Hemant Mehta as a role model. He has, of course, a First Amendment right to write whatever he pleases on his blog, The Friendly Atheist, during his free time, but it's unfortunate that a role model for students would write some of the things he writes. What more could parents hope for in their children's teachers than a little old-fashioned vindictiveness? Well, that's pleasant. So she basically outed me as an atheist to everyone who is higher up than me at the high school in which I work. And it made it sound like what I do in the math classroom is that I teach kids that 1 + 1 = 2, and a squared plus b squared = c squared, and some numbers are imaginary, just like God. I did not get that email from her, by the way, because she didn't send it to me. What I got was a reply all from one of the board members who also CC'd me on the second email. And here's what he wrote back. And again, I'm shortening this. But here's one of the school board members to everybody and me. Isn't raising such a free time squabble with his employers in self-vindictive? What does that say about the example you're setting for families? Jump to the very last part. I wonder why you chose not to include Mr. Mehta on the distribution list for your thoughts. Could it be that you valued the cheap shot most of all? Okay. I'm going to stay the hell out of this conversation. But, I avoided this entirely. But this is a couple days before school started. And so I called up my math chair, and I'm like, listen, I got to talk to you about this lady, because I have a little bit of history with her. Anyway, what ended up happening is she actually said in a second reply to everybody, the reason I sent you guys an email is not because I want to get him fired, it's because parents have a right to pull their children out of his classroom if they don't like his religious or social views, which is ridiculous. Because how many of you know all of your teachers' religious views growing up? Like, that's crazy. And she added, like, sent an email because she didn't want to send out press releases, because that would just embarrass me like crazy. So after she gets this email, she sent out a press release. And another one a couple days later. And another one a day later. 3 in the span of a week. I was really mad. And I responded to all of them on my site. But basically, here's why I love the people I work with at my high school. Basically, my principal, who, for what it's worth, is Catholic, and my math department chair, they basically said, look, you don't talk about this stuff in your classroom, right? No, I teach math. They're like, then we don't have a problem with what you're doing. Awesome, good, that's how it should be. But for a year, I've had to deal with this for a year. I'm like, I really am angry at her. Like, this pisses me off. And then this year, I found out that her organization and several others, one group called the Americans for the Truth About Homosexuality, they were hosting a seminar right by where I live to teach 14 to 25-year-olds how to be anti-gay marriage like activists. And so I'm like, I would totally register for that thing and just go myself, but they know who I am. But I did write about it on my website, so guess what happened? She sent out whoa, come back. Come back. Yes. There we go. So she sent out, this is another one she sent out a month ago. She sent out another press release. So now we're starting this all back up again over the summer. And again, I'm just really frustrated that they're using my school connection instead of just me and just my website, which frankly I'd be all right with. But so they did this. And not only this, there was the AFTA, the Americans for Truth About Homosexuality, basically reprinted it, but I highlighted this part down there. Something tells me that numbers and equations aren't all that Meta is talking about in his classroom. Wow. What? Like crazy. So, okay, so after all this happened, at some point, Lori Higgins, that same woman, she emailed me. She's like, hey, here's what one of your followers wrote to me. And I looked at this message that some atheist who had clearly read my website and then linked to her website had sent to her. And I'm like, what? Oh man, that's a stupid email someone wrote to her, full of profanity, calling her names. Like, that's not helpful. And I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry you got that email. I didn't tell anyone to write that. But hey, while we're at it, what's up with that? And she writes back, yeah, you're right. He shouldn't have said that. I'm going to try to get him to remove it. So we get some emails back and forth, and finally we're like, let's just go out for coffee. Let's talk about this in person, outside of the blogosphere, outside of the internets. And so we decided to meet for coffee. No, that's how our coffee looked like. Yeah. No. So we met. We talked. For what it's worth, it was off the record, and I'll honor that. I'm not going to tell you everything we talked about, but we had a discussion about all the back and forth that was going on and what happened and what are we allowed to criticize? What should we be criticizing, and what should we keep away from? I feel, and I'm not, we'll see if this happens, I don't think she'll be bothering me about school anymore. If she has something to say about what I read on my website, maybe she will. But I don't think she's going to go after me, and I'm like, this is good. It was nice that we could talk about this thing in person. Like, that actually helps. I don't know if you'll be able to see this video, but around the same time, I saw Rachel Maddow's show, and she interviewed this guy named Richard Cohen, who wrote this book basically saying, here's how you can change gay people to make them straight, talking about those conversion therapies. And Rachel Maddow, who is a lesbian, I mean, clearly she wasn't happy with this guy, and she wrote about him she's talked about him several times. Then he came on her show to do an interview. I just want to play the first few seconds of the clip. Even if you can't see the video, listen to the audio.
Joining us now is Richard Cohen, author of the book Coming Out Straight, Understanding and Healing Homosexuality. Mr. Cohen is also head of the International Healing Foundation, which purports to be able to turn gay people straight. Mr. Cohen, thank you very much for being with us tonight. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, Rachel.
First, let me ask you if I have gotten any facts wrong in anything I just said. I know you haven't been happy with our coverage.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate this opportunity. You know, Uganda got it wrong, and I'm sorry to say you did too, Rachel. And I'm grateful to be here to set the record straight about the misrepresentation of our work.
I'm going to stop it there. You should actually see that clip on YouTube because it's really funny and awesome. But I like that. He basically, before that clip started, she gave like a 5-minute spiel about her coverage of him and what she has said about him, what he has said in response to her things. Then she gets to the interview. First thing she asks, did I get anything wrong there? Give him a chance to respond. Let's hear what he has to say. And that's a good idea. And I started thinking, okay, well, if I could take Lori Higgins and meet her in person and maybe diffuse some of this tension and situation and stuff, maybe that's a good thing. I read this story. This church in, I think, New Zealand, this guy's name is Witu Abraham. He needs a dentist really badly. He's in a wheelchair. He had head injuries, and he's broke as he's in this retirement home. And not only is he broke, though, the story mentioned that he had given like $20,000+ to a church, and they took it. And the whole story is, here's a guy who really needs some medical help, but he has no money because he gave it all to the church. And what does the pastor have to say about that? The pastor, Bruce Collingwood, said, basically in this article, he said, what? He gave it to us. We didn't like steal it from him. Like, he voluntarily gave us the stuff. So, yeah, why are you all mad at me? And I'm like, okay, that did not portray the pastor very kindly at all. And maybe it shouldn't, because if they're really taking this guy's money when he needs it and he needs the money, that's horrible. So I'm like, well, why don't I just write an email to the pastor and find out what's going on? Like, did this story portray him accurately? And I got a response from him. He basically said, look, I'm not going to respond to everything you asked me because my advisors have said, take a day or two to cool off. But it is shocking that the media can get away with defaming my character with no proof. So I wrote back, well, I mean, how are they defaming you? And are you going to issue any sort of statement? Because I haven't heard anything from you. Your church website doesn't say anything. He wrote back again, like, it did not portray our church accurately. We want to help people, not hurt them. We have cared for Witu for over 11 years and have helped him in many ways and will continue to. I think not many people were writing to him saying, look, I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but like, let me hear your side of the story. I don't think he was getting that from anyone. I think he did get a lot of hate mail from people after they read that article. And a day after this email correspondence, he did issue a press release, and the church returned the money to the guy. I'm not taking credit for that at all. I'm not saying that's because of me. But I'm saying I think it helps that here's a human being that did have a side of this story that he felt was being not portrayed correctly. And I think he appreciated having the chance to talk to someone about it. I mean, that's a good thing, too. Jen McCright mentioned yesterday there was this guy who also did International Burn a Quran Day coming up on September 11th. Same thing. My first reaction when I heard that story is, what a jerk. The second thought is, I have some questions for him. So I emailed him, and he responded. And I was able to put up, we didn't have coffee, but reaching out to someone worked. He actually did respond to the email. I just posted it on the website like yesterday. But he answered like 10 or 11 questions about, so why are you doing this? Do you think it's just a strategic blunder? Like, because do you really think people are going to like, oh, yes, you're right, I'm going to become a Christian now? But he answered all those questions. I mean, that's a good thing. I bring up PZ for a very good reason. And it's because when you're a blogger, especially someone like him, he gets how many hundreds of emails a day with people saying, write about this story, write about that story. And no one's writing him a story saying, hey, look at what this church did to this guy. Do you think the church was right here? Or do you think, no one writes to him saying, hey, PZ, what do you think about this? I think a lot of the emails he gets are, look at this stupid thing that this Christian did. What do you think? Everyone here knows what he thinks. You just like seeing him get angry. And that's why we that's why it's fun to read his site, because it's just fun to watch him get mad. But here's the thing, it's very easy to vilify and demonize these people that we always hear about, it's a lot harder and probably way more productive to reach out to those people. This is another story I heard in Chicago when the Gay Pride Parade happened. There was a Christian group that held signs up at the parade. They didn't say, like, God hates fags. They said things like, I'm sorry for how the church has treated you. I'm sorry for how the church has hurt you. Well, that sounds pretty damn nice of them. Like, that's a good thing. But when I saw that, I'm like, wait, I don't buy that just yet. Because I want to know, are these people, whoever's holding the signs, would they vote for gay marriage? Do they think being gay is an abomination? Do they think it's a sin? Because if they do, and they would vote against gay marriage, frankly, I don't give them a lot of credit for that. And I went to their website. The website, it was the Marin Foundation, run by a guy named Andrew Marin. I went to their website, and they had a FAQ, and it said, do you think homosexuality is immoral? What do you think about gay marriage? They purposely avoided the question on their website, saying, we think giving an answer one way or the other is going to hinder the conversation, so we don't want to have it. Well, no, I want an answer to this. And so I emailed the guy. Guess what? His dad works at my school. He went to another school in my district. We had coffee. It worked. I mean, I got answers from him on both of those questions. And he said, and again, I'm not telling them now, but he said he'll do an interview for the site too. So, I mean, good, reach out. I like that some of those groups that did the Chalk the Muhammad Day, I think the group at Wisconsin-Madison were the ones that Cassie just mentioned, where the group like drew Muhammad Ali instead of Muhammad. And the atheist group responded back with very clever ways to get back at this. But I like that they reached out to the Muslim group first and said, look, here's what we're doing. What do you think? That's a lot harder to do than just saying, we're going to do this and, better to ask forgiveness than permission or something. No, it's good to reach out to the group and saying, look, here's what we're going to do. Just so we want to make sure you understand. This is not like because we hate you. We're doing this on account of free speech and we don't like censorship in any way. Like, that's awesome. That should happen more often. And finally, just I don't like this confrontational thing. I don't like that so many websites and blogs are just like, look at what this crazy religious person did, and that's the end of the conversation. I've been invited to do debates. I don't do debates, ever. I've been to several churches for conversations of this sort. I don't do debates. What I do are conversations. Like, this is one I did last week in Bloomington, Illinois. In the middle is the pastor of this church. On the right is a theological professor who is a Christian, and there's me on the left. And the whole purpose was, we're not going to have a debate on this stuff. Let's just have a discussion. Let's talk about the issues, where we agree, where we disagree. Let's let the audience ask us something, because this is an important dialogue to have. Open up the dialogue. That's all I'm saying. It's a good idea, and this gets much more positive press than a lot of other things we do. And I don't think people are used to that, especially from our crowd, where we're saying, okay, well, let's hear what you have to say. We'll give you a forum on which to say it in. And I think from all this, there's a couple lessons to learn from all this. One possible, it's better to build bridges than to derail any chance of a conversation, even with someone you just really disagree with. And finally, it's better to give them a chance to respond before you join the mob. It's so easy to pile on people who do something that you think is jerky. I've been there. I've said it. But if you can hold off, or at least gauge their reaction before you say something, it's not a bad thing. So leave you with that. There's my contact info if you ever have any questions. But yeah, thanks so much.